I don't know. Cheeseburger's an assassin.
Dude loves the support. And Mankind is a top laner.
It's not technically part of the cast, but can I title this episode Cheeseburger's an Assassin?
Cheeseburger is an assassin, yes.
Fantasy Dota.
Hi, Allison. It's nice to have you here.
Hey.
We've been talking
sorry
about
I'm late.
we've been talking about what would a MOBA be if it was made of wrestlers.
Oh. And that's why I was like trying to listen to this, and I'm like these. I noticed that these are words, but I don't know what any of them mean.
Cheeseburger's an assassin.
Okay. I don't play MOBAs, and I don't like the only wrestling I've seen is when we watched it together. So
I think Cheeseburger was in that, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's in the opening match.
The name sounds familiar.
He's like real skinny. He's like 130 pounds. And his
yeah, that's why because they call him Cheeseburger. That's right.
Yeah. I love him.
By the way, this match just ended.
Yes. In spectacular fashion.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I almost just knocked my cup of water over.
Oh my god.
Onto my keyboard, I should say.
Yeah, give us a share.
I should do the same thing.
Yeah, sorry I'm late. My computer was having issues, so I mistakenly decided let's restart the thing, and then it got started into a updating loop.
That's Alex's life.
Yep. I was like, this feels fitting.
Yeah, I've been there too many times.
Oh, I forgot to put my game in the YouTube thing.
Oh yeah.
I did not put mine in either.
Just let me know what they are ahead of time, and I can get them in there for you, even if you didn't take footage.
Oh, I did take footage. Let me grab it.
Okay, I have not used any of my own footage in a while. So
I'm too lazy to capture footage.
I'm gonna take down the video first.
Yeah, I think as long as we can use sections that don't have a lot of overlays and graphics from a specific channel, it's not so bad.
I usually try to find official ones, the official trailer of XYZ, and usually that's fine. I don't know if I'll find one for this week, but
same. But I tend to do it that way, but I also tend to use Giant Bomb Quick Looks if I can.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Just watch out for Vice.
I was just gonna say that. It's don't use a waypoint one.
Just don't show dead cells.
Yeah.
Just never show dead cells. Got it. Okay.
So that's why Sam's not here.
I have almost all of our videos queued up and good to go.
So. I'm about to put mine in. Just give me a second.
No worries. How many of us are talking about dead cells today?
I think it was just you and Sam.
Oh, I mean,
I can tribute to dead cells.
Yeah, I'd like to hear, kind of have some back and forth with Andre about it too, because I know you've run through it and you've done the next runs, right?
Yeah, I haven't completed any of those, but yeah.
like the 4-cell runs and stuff like that.
The what?
There's we'll get into it later, but it's you can kind of add modifiers.
Oh yeah. All right, everyone ready?
I'm ready.
Yeah.
Think we can hear someone's Dota stream.
Me, mine is silent.
That's going to be problematic. Only because if you can hear that, that means you'll be able to hear everything.
Everything?
Like if someone shuts a car door outside.
Yeah, it was very quiet, but I was like, I feel like I can hear it. The Dota police are gonna say we're illegally streaming their stream.
Yeah, Gabe is gonna swing in and be like, "The fuck."
I guess I was like, he's not that far away. He probably isn't that far away. He's probably
Well, he's in Vancouver, right? Well, probably not. Now he's probably back at home. He doesn't give a shit how the TI ends.
he can come get you
with all the knives.
What if Gabe Newell live casted the finals?
Like he has an alternate stream, like the Gaben stream.
No, on the main stream, he casted the finals.
That announcer pack is really, really funny.
He's just so.
I think
he's so.
That would be why.
Hi, I'm Gabe
really
Newell.
good.
First Blood. Thank you for playing Dota 2. That's like actually how the lines go for the announcer pack.
All right, I might have to pick up a battle pass just for that.
Wait, so he legitimately is the announcer in that?
So
in the pack, not at TI.
Yeah, so
okay.
I don't know if you know how that works, Allison.
Right.
You can purchase like cosmetics and such. One of them is announcers. So like there's a Gelato announcer pack and stuff like that, and like a Rick and Morty one, which is terrible. But yeah, Gabe did one.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Gabe's is. He won't say triple kill. Like he says, you've killed more than 2 people, but less than 4 when the triple kill happens.
That's really funny.
It's really good.
I don't want to get into Dota, but I kind of want to try that.
There's a really good YouTube video.
Okay, I have to watch that.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
That's hilarious.
Okay. Let me see. Trying to think of my intro.
This is where I'm starting the podcast, by the way.
Okay, that's good. Well, then if you're joining us, hello and welcome to Gaming Fix episode. What episode is this? Episode 34. I am hosting today. My name is Andre, aka your girl's favorite king of fighters. I'm joined today, as per usual, by Alex Colinas.
I have no witty comments this morning.
Allison Saigan.
Saigan, pretty close. I'm trying to think of a witty comment, and I don't know if I can ever do it.
Erica Hernandez.
Hello. I'm not going to try.
And
The Erica Hernandez way of life.
I'm not going to try.
Damn.
Hey, it's not
me
your
like
turn for
that.
witty comments anymore. You wasted yours. Can't re-roll. We're doing it again. And our best boy, Pat Cotter.
Yep.
Okay.
Sam's maybe gonna join us later. Did he say?
I don't think he is.
He
I don't think he is.
He didn't say
past his bedtime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were so close. We almost had a full cast for like the first time in forever.
Like 2 months or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Can we make it work like soon?
Dog. Yeah, you know, I like these smaller casts. Nothing wrong with a full cast.
Yeah.
But we get a bit more for conversation going around about more in-depth things. But anyway, we're going to talk about some video games today. And so Alex is going to start us off with a video game, I think.
I've never had Taco Bell. What should I order if I was going to go there for the first time?
Ooh. Crunchwrap Supreme for 1.
You want to order a plastic bag. You're gonna want to hang that, like, the handles around your ears. And then so that way all the crumbs will fall on that, and that when you puke, it just goes right in the bag.
Okay.
If you're picking up Taco Bell, you're doing it wrong. Taco Bell is like an elixir of the gods.
But I've heard it's also elixir of diarrhea.
It can be.
If you got a
You
weak
do
stomach,
it wrong. You just got to do it right.
or you eat like the fire sauce or whatever, maybe.
I'll tell you, for starters, I don't know what it would be in Canadian dollars, but in American dollars, if your order costs more than like $9, then you've made a mistake, because that means you have way too much Taco Bell.
But
I really
what
like
if you
the
want
triple layer.
steak?
So
I like the triple layer nachos a lot. Those are good.
Yes, the Nacho Fry Supreme is available currently because Nacho Fries are still around.
Oh, I don't know.
Objection.
one close to me.
I'm gonna have to call a mulligan. This is not the Giant Beast cast.
Although I do have a quick question. Friends, am I a bad American because I've never had Taco Bell?
No,
No.
you're not a bad American. You're missing out, but you're not a bad American.
Yeah, like there's not one close to me, so I have it very rarely. But when I do, I go in. Like
I had a huge argument with some folks recently because I said that I like Taco Bell more than Chipotle, and they acted as though they were going to pitch me into the Puget Sound. And I'm learning that West Coast people with their Chipotle, man, it's like.
Also,
whoa.
I mean, as
The problem with
somebody that's
Chipotle
never,
is it's real expensive.
yeah,
and it
and
will
it just
kill
tastes
you.
different.
You get salmonella from it. That's the real problem with Chipotle.
E. coli. Did they
Yeah.
a salmonella outbreak?
Yes, in Ohio recently.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Not in the States. I don't have to worry about these things.
They keep having to close Chipotle's to retrain the staff on food safety. So I don't understand why people love it so much.
Because it's big and delicious.
So is Qdoba.
I only go to like my local burrito joints, at least when I was in the States. I would, yeah, oh man.
Anyway,
So
The
speaking
thing
of
about Chipotle is that
no, go for it.
it's just that you can buy if you buy a burrito and then chips, then you can have 2 meals with it, which I did
Guac
use
is
in
extra.
college. Guac is extra, which sucks, but
yeah.
live a little.
Used to suck because I would like order a bowl without meat in it before they added the sofritos, but I used to get like a meatless bowl and no cheese, no sour cream, and then they'd still charge me extra for guac. And I'm like, really? I didn't get meat.
Yeah.
Wait, yeah, no, I heard that.
Yeah, just
Guac
substitute the meat for the guac.
so now you've hit on the best thing about Taco Bell. As someone I'm pescatarian, so the only meat I eat is seafood, and I don't even eat much seafood. At Taco Bell, literally any meat item on any menu item, you can just have them substitute beans for it.
Yeah.
And at every Taco Bell, they know how to do that. They know where the button is. It's like almost never a mistake, and you can order anything on the menu, even if you don't eat meat. And that is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Checkmate.
Exactly.
Oh,
Anyway.
also the apple cinnamon empanadas.
More like
And the Cinnabon bites.
Oh, I've never had those.
Okay, let's rescue us from this Taco Bell hell.
You brought us into it.
Just let me burn in that hell. Come
Oh my
on.
god. So I played a video game. I played 2 video games that we're going to be talking about this week. The first of which has to do with food, which is something you'll also hear about later. But this is a different food video game. I played a little game that is for handheld devices, aka phones, and it's free to play.
Senran Kagura Bon Appetit.
Yep, that's the one. No, it is called Hungry Hearts, and it is. I was introduced to it by my friend, and she's like, "You need to play this," and I was like, "Okay." So it is a free-to-play mobile idle game. So idle game being like it's almost like a clicker, but it's not so much about clicking things fast and clicking things a lot. It's just about like planning ahead and reacting to scenarios and then clicking on the appropriate things. So like it's not super deep gameplay, but the premise is you're playing as this grandma who's taking care of the family's Japanese restaurant while her husband is sick. And you start by making really simple dishes for a few customers, like rice balls and stuff like that. And then as the game progresses, you end up making more and more complicated dishes for lots and lots of customers, like fancy ramen bowls and stuff like that. So mechanically, it's really, really simple, like I was saying, but when you're playing it, it's somewhere between really, really, really relaxing and fairly fun. Because like there is a bit of management that you have to do and stuff like that, but it's just super chill. It's great. But the best part about the entire game is definitely like the story. So which is weird for a free-to-play idle clicker, but it's not like a traditional linear story. You're interacting with this cast of characters who come in and visit your restaurant, and as they get to like your foods more and more, they'll come back and come back and come back more often, and then share more of their story. So you end up like learning all about these people's lives, and they share their problems with you, and you as the old Japanese grandma are giving your sage wise advice and stuff like that. I don't know, all the characters that come in feel super realistic, and their scenarios are really relatable. And like every character grows over the course of the game. So like, I don't know, it's great. It has lots of like genuine life lessons all about real life problems like death and family and love and getting over loss and stuff like that. But it never feels preachy. Like it's always just really nice and genuine, like lovely advice. So I adored that little game. It's not very long. You could probably finish it in an afternoon if you wanted, without spending a dime. And I think though you could do it that way, it's probably worth spreading it out, like kind of, touch it for like 20 minutes a day, let its scenarios and interactions kind of settle in and you can think about them and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's a great game to reflect on, and I think it's totally worth checking out.
Can you give me the name again?
It is called Hungry Hearts.
Hungry Hearts.
I'm looking at it, and there's a distinct lack of Bruce Springsteen, which is kind of troubling to me, but otherwise it looks very good.
Yeah, I have almost no complaints about that game. I think it's great. Its music is really cute and charming. Like, the animations are really adorable. The characters are all awesome. It's great. It's super fun.
Awesome.
Owner of a hungry heart.
Nailed it. I don't know. Have you guys ever played like a idle clicker that had like a story? Because for me, that's kind of new.
Yeah, not really.
Yeah, there's that space one. Yeah, Space Plan. Yeah,
I don't know
a
if
story.
I've played that.
It's very good.
It's on mobile, but it's also in a browser. I think it costs money on mobile.
The one that costs money, it's on Steam as well. It has additional stuff in it. The browser one's still available, but the one that costs money does have more things.
It's pretty quick too. It's not like a super long thing. It's just like a short narrative. This sounds like it's a lot more in depth.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is a very short. It's a short game, and it's a little bit silly, but it is fun. I like Space Plan a lot.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah, for an idle game, if you want one with like a more of a driving narrative or something, then Space Plan is a good option.
Some of the gameplay is very interesting too. It's not just click, click, click. Some of it is like you have to actually think about how you deploy stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is a bit of that. Like space. You have to think about it.
Very well said. Yeah, like the way you plan in this game is if you go into every character like that comes in, you can look at their profile or whatever, and you can say, oh, this little girl really likes an omelet with ketchup. So if you know she's coming in later, you'll prepare an omelet with ketchup and she'll fall in love with you and she'll keep coming back, like that kind of thing.
That little girl is wrong.
Fall in love with the grandma?
Yep. She'll fall in love with the grandma. But anyways, play that game.
I do it every day.
Yeah. So that's again, love that game, but I think what we're probably gonna end up talking more about
monochrome.
Oh, sorry, 1 second. That has audio. I played this video game that a couple of people have been talking about here and there called Dead Cells.
Ooh.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, so I've deliberately been kind of waiting to play that game. Like, I followed it during early access because I love roguelikes, and like one of my all-time favorite games is Rogue Legacy. So I didn't want to like I just wanted to wait for the 1.0 release to get like the full experience. And mechanically, I think it's probably one of the best playing 2D combat systems I've ever used. And like,
yeah,
like the navigation, everything feels amazing. So like the responsiveness of the controls and the fast travel gate system and stuff like that, like all that is really amazing. But all that being said, for me personally, I think it might be my most disappointing game of the year. Like, I really dislike playing it, and I've already uninstalled it.
Wow.
I expected that when you said I had thoughts about this, I was like, Alex is going to be the roadblock to making Dead Cells Game of the Year. Which also means that Celeste is not going to be Game of the Year.
So I think that game has a ton of positives, and like it does some of the stuff that's like it's best in the industry at some of the stuff, but for every positive I have like an equally huge negative. Like, I think it's extremely poorly balanced and has really, really, really big issues with its game design. So where do you want to start?
I mean, Andre's more equipped to talk about it because I haven't actually like played through. I've poked and prodded at. I mean, I've probably played about 6 hours of it since 1.0 came out, but I haven't had time to like. I haven't really had to. I've enjoyed playing that game as, it's about a half hour before I have to go to bed. I'm going to do a run or two, and I've enjoyed it in that aspect. I haven't really seen any structural problems outside of. I do think that sometimes the way that it spawns enemies could be better. I don't think it's like horrible, but I do find that there are occasionally enemy spawns that seem so difficult to deal with that I don't understand, given the tools that are presented to you at that stage, how you're supposed to get past them. And there's been a few times where I've been like, everybody's talking about this like they're progressing, and I don't understand how. But I also accept that it's just more time. You got to spend more time playing.
Which specific enemies are you talking about? Are you talking about like the scorpions that pop out of the ground, or like the ninjas that kind of teleport to you?
Like the guys that can teleport to you, those I feel are like there's a lot of they're extremely brutal, because I feel like their timing window on when they telegraph their attack is so incredibly small that if you don't hit the button immediately when their telegraph comes up, you're going to get hit. And sometimes if you hit it too fast, your roll immunity is gone by the time they swing. And that enemy in particular bothers me because it's presented at the second level of the game, which is like they're really, really, really hard to deal with. You are definitely going to get hit by them when you first encounter them, and probably killed. And so that's really the only thing so far that I've found that frustrating. And I think that not that I would really compare the game to Dark Souls, but if you look at games that are very difficult like Dark Souls, they have similar enemies that very early on seem that it's impossible to defeat them, and then you learn more about how the game works, and eventually you get around it. So I'm kind of assuming that's where I'll get with a lot of that stuff.
And I would say it's definitely that way. Like those ninja guys in particular, they have a very they telegraph with an audio cue. So as soon as you hear that audio cue, you're like, oh, hit circle or whatever you're using as a controller. So I think the first few runs, you're totally right. Like the first few times you encounter those enemies, it's probably going to feel like, oh my God, how do I even deal with this? But the more time you do runs, I think it becomes easier. Like now I can basically make it through the first 3 dungeons without taking a single hit. Yeah. And like if I start a new save, it would probably be the same way, like even without my current upgrades.
When I started, I definitely had trouble with the teleporting guys, but now like I'm used to it. Like I know what to expect, and so like I don't get like flustered, or I'm not like surprised. So I'm just like, okay, yep, no, this guy's here, and I'm gonna roll past and then hit him. And like it also depends on the weapons you have. Like sometimes I've got like a broadsword, and I'm not used to the timing, so then I'm like, oh, okay, nope, I screwed that up. I hit the button at the wrong time, and I got whacked for it. Yeah. So like the more time you put into it, the more like, and you get used to like the finer like tunings of the mechanics and all. Like once you're not like stressed about it, it becomes a lot easier. But like what you're saying about them like dropping those teleporting enemies on you is like, yeah, it is like a little bit of a jump in difficulty on the second level.
I think that if there was a way to practice against them without having to spend the time getting to them, that would be really cool. I kind of wish the game had some sort of like, hey, you've unlocked the ability to practice against this enemy because you've killed one of them, and then you can could just see the attack patterns. But that's a very minor complaint.
Yeah. So
they're at least those are in the second level, so you can just kind of run there real quick.
Yeah. Which eventually that'll get to one of my biggest problems with this game. But I'll say the first few runs were super fun. Like those first where you're kind of discovering the game and you're like kind of going in blind. Like I personally didn't use any guides or anything like that, just to kind of experience it naturally.
Yeah, that's kind of how I've been, just what I've heard on podcasts.
Yeah, like I've deliberately not listened to anything that's talking about the mechanics, just to dive in and learn it and just, do it. But as I play through more and more runs, like it never really changes. Like every time basically feels exactly the same. Like the layouts will change, like the dungeon layouts will change, and honestly that stuff is really good. Like it feels super natural, which is really hard to do as a programmer. Like it's hard to make that feel like you're generating real levels that people can play. But
isn't that the point of like the genre though? Is to
I wouldn't say so. Like for this in particular, the gameplay flow always feels exactly the same. Like it's always the same enemies, always the same general strategy. Like even if you're using other weapons and stuff, and I kept thinking about Rogue Legacy and how much better I like that game. Even though like I went back and played it a little bit today, and it's not as pretty, it doesn't play quite as well, but like the lineage stuff, like how you will play a game and suddenly you have the vertigo, or like, other random stuff that changes and mutates the way you play. Like that makes it way more interesting. And then like the enemies that show up are different depending on the run and stuff. But I don't know. the permanent progression in that game is extremely slow, and it felt like nothing you were doing was ever significant. Like grinding cells to upgrade yourself, like to have more health potions or whatever the case might be, or to unlock new weapons. Like it's really far and few between.
I do agree with you that I think the permanent upgrades are slow. Sorry, Andre.
Andre.
I think you just have to you have to devote runs to like farming cells. Yeah, which I don't think is the best way to go about it, but that's kind of what the game asks you to do without actually asking you to do it. So like running through and like getting the time doors to get like the bonus cells and stuff like that. So
yeah, but like I don't know, that just feels like really poor gameplay decisions to me. Like for an example, so yeah, grinding cells takes forever, and then unlock to get them far and few between. But when it comes to the weapons, like if you have unlocked the blueprints for a bunch of weapons, you can't try those out before unlocking them, like especially the abilities or like the items, whatever you want to call them. So it's kind of a gamble as to whether or not you'll actually find use in it. Like I unlocked vampirism pretty early because I was like, oh, lifesteal, that seems pretty good, and it's an item, so that means it'll have a cooldown, right? Nope, you can only use it once per dungeon. And I was like, well, I really wish I hadn't unlocked that because I'm never going to use that.
That's a different.
There's the tonic, which I think is a one-use thing. I think vampirism is on a cooldown.
No, it's not. It's once per dungeon. I unlocked it specifically because I thought it would be on a cooldown, and it is not. So like I was like,
I think
okay,
it used to be, so they changed that.
Yeah, like I got that. I was like, well, this is something I'll never use. So if I run into that in the dungeon, I just walk by it. Or like, I was like, oh look, this boot thing looks pretty funny. Haha, let's unlock it. And like, every time I see it, I'm just like, well, just gonna pass that by because that's complete garbage. So like, half of the weapons just feel like shit to me. Like, so it's like if I'm not interacting with half of the weapons because they feel terrible, then that's just poorly. That's like it's wasting your time.
I think that's true in almost any action RPG though, that each person's going to come at it with, because in games like the Souls games, there are definitely weapons that I think that I hate to use. Monster Hunter is another great example, which is I've been playing that a lot the last few days, and like Monster Hunter, there's weapons I hate to use, but to other people that's like the whole game. So but I think you make a good point about the problem is you can't control that experience in Dead Cells. It would be fine if out of the weapons you only liked half of them if you could guarantee you were going to get one that you'd like every time. Well, I mean, that is frustrating, I think.
In roguelikes, I get it. It's random rolls. Like, you don't have any control over that. Like, think of Binding of Isaac, right? Like, you have no control over what you get. And, like, it's just an infinite pool. You're not unlocking new things, really. You are to an extent, but, like, talking about the core ones. So, like, I'm kind of shitting on it, but there's some stuff that's really awesome in there, too. Like, Andre, have you gotten the automatic bow-o-matic or whatever it's called?
Yes. Is that the one? I've got like the double bow-o-matic or whatever, where it shoots in two directions, which is very good.
That one's really good, especially when it has status effects like fire or ice or poison and stuff like that. Like that stuff is really cool. But I don't know.
Once you get further in the game, you get the ability to upgrade like the weapons as they're in your inventory, and then you can upgrade them to like to plus, and then you can upgrade them to like double plus. And then you can also upgrade it to the point where more like 100% of the items you find will start as a plus, so they'll all have like a status effect to start.
Yeah, the forge is really interesting.
Upgrade to double plus,
so the forge is interesting for that, but also it takes like, if you want stuff to be plus plus, it takes 3,000 cells. Like it's kind of insane. Like it's just untenable unless you're doing like the new game plus runs. But I don't know.
I've gotten to the point where I can get like 89 souls or 100 souls by the time I get to like the forge or whatever, and so at least I feel like I'm making some progress towards that stuff. But like 3,000 is so much.
And you can get a multiplier with the new game plus that makes it a little better and more reasonable, but still it still feels it's the exact same run every time. So
and there's added enemies and stuff, and they but some of them are just like stupid. They're enemies that are in like previous runs, but they show up earlier, and like that's actually given me some trouble because like I get like stun locked by some of them, and it's just the stupidest. I've made it to the final boss on like the first modifier once, but I wasn't able to beat it because he's a fucker.
That's one thing I've seen people, like I've kind of read discussion online as well, people complaining about the difficulty. I think the difficulty is largely fine. The balance is pretty decent. But that being said, the last dungeon and the final boss are just like the worst. Like they're just bad balancing. It felt like they rushed it. Like
I feel like the last level, to me, the last level is fine. Like every time I've gone through, like I've been able to do it. I don't think I've maybe died in the last level once on the times I've been to it. But like the boss, it's just so ridiculously hard compared to everything else you fight.
Like I've made it through the final dungeon as well every time, but like it feels like it's made artificially difficult by throwing in a bunch of really high-powered, like far-reaching baddies that you can't touch sometimes, like the spinning dude. Like a lot of the time you have to be like really slow with him, and I don't know, like the final, it's a bad boss fight and it's in a bad arena. Like
the
arena is probably the worst part.
For me, like it's, since now I know like what's in each level, I can like prepare for it and go, okay, if I find this kind of weapon, I need to pick it up because I know I'm going to want it. Like I know I'm going to want a bow when I go into the final level because I don't want to get near those guys. And
that's another problem that I have with it, is that like I want to get to the final level and practice on it. But if you want to properly fight it, you have to go slowly and collect health upgrades and get weapons that will actually serve a purpose. But like also the game kind of encourages you to go fast with those timed rooms. But if you do that, then you're probably not going to get every health upgrade or weapon and stuff. And it's just like, I don't really know what they're going for. Like, sure, it's multiple play styles, but like it seems just, I don't know. It's a weird design choice for me.
I think that game is all about trying to force you outside of your comfort zone. At every turn, it's trying to get you to play it on its terms, not on your terms. And I think that could be I'm not even ascribing this to you, but I think that could be very frustrating for a lot of people who play those kinds of games. I think for some people they thrive on it, but I think for a lot of people it's not fun and just frustrating.
I think it's annoying because at some point I stopped wanting to engage with the combat, which is very good, because I was just like, I just want to roll past all these enemies and just get to the fast rooms. And it's like, well, I'm not really playing the game anymore. I'm just running past everything and trying to do it in a fast, like, you know, in a fast way. So, but again, doing that, if you want to reach the boss fight and try it, then it leaves you at a disadvantage. So like, I feel like it's not really, I think my biggest stickler with it is that like the thing I liked in Rogue Legacy the most was the permanent upgrades. And this game has permanent upgrades, but I don't know, they kind of suck. Like you don't really see a discernible difference.
Not like stat bonuses. It's not permanent stat bonuses. It's just like it's items that you can get.
It's also presented in a totally different way. Whereas in Rogue Legacy, it's like, in between runs, I'm going to manage, and then I'm going to go into my run. And I think that sells the fact that it's in between levels. And when you die, every time you die, it's an, well, shit, I died moment. There is no like, well, I died, but now I get to spend my money. It's like, I died, I lost, 40 cells, and that was a waste of time.
So the first time I got to the last boss fight, it took me like an hour and something. So long run. And I'd been upgrading stuff, and I think by that point I had 2 of the 3 runes. Like I had the vine one and the smashy one.
Okay.
And because I think it's the smashy one, then the spider one, right?
I started playing in early access, and I got the vine, then I got like the sarcophagus.
Oh yeah, sorry, that was the second one.
Yeah, I didn't get the smashy or the spider until like it came out in 1.0.
Right.
But I also wasn't playing much.
But yeah, so like I got basically 2-shot on that boss fight because I had no idea what was coming, and then the build I had was just completely useless against it. And then I got sent back to the start of the game, and I started a new run, and I was like, the start of this run feels exactly the same as my previous run and the 5 before that. Like now I have an extra health potion, and now I can do some extra stuff with abilities, but like, I don't know, man. Like the abilities don't feel like they do that much. Like, yes, it's cool, but like, I don't know. I was expecting more of it. Like I really wish the permanent upgrades changed things in a discernible way. It just doesn't feel like it changes things that much.
Yeah, if the combat isn't like really pulling you along, then I don't know if the game has much to offer you. And like, I've been playing. I'll talk about them after everyone else is done talking about their games. But like the 2 games I've been playing, the combat, they're very similar in their 2D action fighting games or whatever. Not fighting games, but 2D action games like that. And the combat just isn't as good as Dead Cells, and just it's making it hard to enjoy those games as much as if Dead Cells weren't as good.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I think, like I said right at the start, I think it's probably the best 2D combat I've ever played in a game. But it's just a shame that I feel like it's really let down by the game design. So
I also feel like people were talking about it, like I've heard multiple people compare it to Rogue Legacy 2. So it's actually really interesting to hear this, because I have it, but I've only played a handful of runs here and there. But I love Rogue Legacy, so it's going to be kind of interesting to see how much this game pulls me along too, because it feels really good to play. But I was like, I've heard so many people talk about Rogue Legacy with in connection with Dead Cells that might actually be kind of a mistake for people who love Rogue Legacy.
Yeah, I would say it's a way different experience. I think in some ways it's way better, but in a lot of ways Rogue Legacy does stuff better.
I love Rogue Legacy, but part of the struggle I had with that game is that a lot of the differences between runs with oh, you're blind or you're colorblind or whatever, that started after I played a lot of that game. And after a while it started to feel gimmicky, I guess. Like it didn't feel like it actually was a meaningful difference. So I ended up, by the end of my time with Rogue Legacy, I still think it's a great game, but I ended up getting kind of frustrated with it in a similar way to what you're describing, because I was like, none of this shit matters. Just let me turn off the stuff that doesn't matter and play it with things that do matter. And so I ended up getting frustrated with that game because of that. But I also think that they're very different experiences that are going to appeal to a different kind of run-based game player. I think Rogue Legacy and Spelunky are a lot closer to each other. And I think that Dead Cells is Dead Cells is almost like more of a Metroidvania where you die a lot and have to start at the beginning every time. Like it's just like, it feels very different than the typical run-based game. And Spelunky is another one that I think it's impeccably designed, but I could never get into it because it focuses so much on the platforming, and I don't like platforming, which was, I think, the other thing that frustrated me about Rogue Legacy eventually too.
Yeah, Rogue Legacy had its fair share of problems. Like sometimes, do you remember those platforms that you had to butt jump on so they would expand?
Yeah.
Those weren't always really responsive and stuff like that. So, I agree.
Well, it was also required. I feel like they were one of the hardest things to get right in terms of it. I feel like once you practice a lot, you got pretty decent. But it was is the chest at the end anywhere near worth the possible demise?
But kind of to Andre's point, it all comes down to if you clicked really well with the charm and style of Rogue Legacy, then that is, and the platforming aspects, then it's going to pull you through that game in the same way that Dead Cells is all about the combat. And if the combat really clicks for you, I have found that I've liked pretty much every weapon that I've picked up, just situationally, they're for different things, but it's going to be very much to taste whether or not there's enough there. And whether or not I do agree that I think I think it's very near perfect for what it's trying to do for my money, but I do agree that there's some stuff with enemy placement that is problematic that I've seen, and it sounds like at the end level, definitely.
I'm kind of interested to see if, as I play more, if my experiences will be closer to who my experiences will be closer to.
Same for me, really.
Just because it's because one of the things that I really did love about Rogue Legacy was just the general loop of it, especially with upgrades. So now hearing that a lot of the permanent upgrades don't have quite so much impact, that makes me go, I don't know. But then also I love the Binding of Isaac, so I don't even know. I feel like it all depends.
It's the permanent upgrade system is more akin to Binding of Isaac than it is to Rogue Legacy.
That could be part of it too, because I love conceptually what Binding of Isaac does, but I find the art so repulsive to me, just as a style thing. I can't It's
I mean, that's my least favorite part of it, but it is my most played game by far.
Yeah. I respect that people love that game. I'm not necessarily trying to dunk on it, but I played like 2 or 3 hours, and by the end of that time, I was just like, this is gross. I don't like it.
and I should totally note, I think Dead Cells is extremely well made, and I think like for the person who it hits on all cylinders for, I could never ever fault them. I'd be like, yeah, totally get it. It's just for me, I think the game design is very questionable, but I'm also like a programmer who's made games and stuff like that, so maybe I'm more I know how the sausage is made, and maybe I'm just like, oh, I would have done these things different. So like it's a very personal reason that maybe I don't like it very much. Maybe Allison, you'll find it to be the best game you've ever played.
You also no one has to like any game.
Oh yeah, totally. Like look at The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. That game is terrible.
Oh my god.
I do think that we could discuss games without making objective statements about things that are very subjective in nature.
I know. I made Mike Pepper mad on Twitter by saying Breath of the Wild was lame.
Sorry, I'm just joking.
I know.
I
was
not.
joking too.
It's a bad game.
Well,
Okay.
then I'm not joking when I say you're wrong.
Anyways,
Sam's not here. You're outnumbered.
America, by the way.
Anyways, Dead Cells, it's out now.
It is. Speaking of out now, Allison, tell us about your game that is probably out now.
Cool. Yeah, because I've been playing it. Actually, I have 2 quick things to update. I have 2 quick things to update on. So, Octopath Traveler. I've just gotten through all of the chapter 4s for all the characters. So basically, that means all the character stories are done. I'm taking a break because I've spent over like 94 hours on this game so far.
God.
So I'm like, so I think it was. I really liked it. I know that I liked it a lot more than you, Andre, but I liked how character focused all the stories were. I felt like some of the endings were a bit cheesy, and I don't know if they're fully there, but I felt like it was all of the stories were super character focused, which I really appreciated because sometimes you don't always get that in an RPG, and that's what I really connect to with stories is the characters. So having it be all character focused was nice. I wish there was more interaction, but getting to some of the more of the character dialogues, and then also there's like the 3-person character dialogues that you can just kind of randomly stumble upon, and you're like, what is this? And that's really fun, and the combat's really good. Although at a certain point, I feel like I've kind of figured out how to exploit the combat really well, just because I'm like, oh, if you just do this and this and this, I'll like, I don't know if many of the bosses are super hard. Like some of especially the last chapter, all the chapter 4 bosses are all at level 45. So when you get to the last chapter 8 one, it's like I was like all level 60 on all my characters. So I'm like going at it, going like, well, okay, that was it. But I'm probably gonna try for the post game stuff with it. All the story, like I don't want to spoil anything, but all of the stories actually kind of connect in a neat way. And I haven't gotten to the post game stuff yet, so I don't know if this is like actually happening, but it all kind of hints towards a larger thing, which is kind of like, oh, okay. I kind of wish they would have spread that out a little bit more in the story, but you kind of realize all of the stories are kind of converging. So that was kind of cool.
How does that revelation come about? Is it just by playing all the final like the chapter 4 stuff, or is it?
Yeah, and you also it's all the chapter 4 stuff, and you also don't. It's not really explicit. Like, oh, all of our stories are the same. It's like you kind of have to go, wait, so this connects to this. Oh, and so what this character, this like main antagonist has been doing has connected to this. Not all of the stories connect, so there are certain ones where you're like, okay, well, it'd be kind of nice if you could make all of them work together neatly, but a good number of them all kind of connect to this post-game stuff that I still haven't gotten to. Mm-hmm. I know that you have to, like, unlocking it is kind of weird. Like, you have to go through a couple of different side quests and make sure they're all done. It doesn't really indicate, like, oh, there's this thing, but if you play through all the chapter 4 stuff, you can kind of infer, okay, this is what we're going to be fighting. So that was kind of neat. but it games where I totally understand where people who have issues with it are coming from. I don't think it's a perfect game. I just think it hit me in a very specific place where I was just like, I love everything about this game, even though the flaws don't matter to me as much, and the strengths really hit me in a good way. So I've been really enjoying that.
Who ended up being your favorite character?
That's hard. I do really like Primrose. I feel like her story was good. Let's see. I liked all of them, really. I
think that I've actually been a little bit frustrated with the way that discourse evolved around that game, because of course everyone has their own opinion, but the notion that unless the characters are all hyper interconnected and it all comes together into one big point of convergence, the notion that that is how that game has to go for it to be a good story is extremely frustrating to me, because why can't it be a really cool anthology piece? I get the complaint that the characters don't interact enough early on. Sure, that's a fair criticism, and of course mechanically it's going to hit.
Not just early on, it's the whole game.
Well, whatever. But the point though is that not every game has to be Mass Effect. Not every game has to be a BioWare RPG where all the characters end up, wait, your brother is this person and I killed this person, blah, blah, blah. The fact that it sounds like they tangentially connect in kind of convoluted ways, that's okay. I don't really know why it caught so much flack for the fact that the characters aren't all as interwoven from the get-go. I can accept why someone would maybe not enjoy that, but the way that people talked negatively about it, I don't know. It feels like the game is trying to do something interesting narratively, and a lot of the response to it was, no, just give me either straight JRPG or BioWare style storytelling. That's all that's ever going to work for role playing games, and I hate that.
I feel like I get where people are coming from with that, mostly because there are a couple of scenes where it is a little bit jarring, because all the cutscenes approach it like the characters alone, but you have this whole crew kind of backing you up in every single one. So I get the complaint. I do wish that there had been a little bit more interconnection, and not necessarily with the story, but with the interaction, because all the interactions between the characters was really, really charming. And so I'm like, give me more.
It felt like that game got really dismissed, and it went from oh, that's a cool demo. Oh, this is great. Wait, I can't make these characters fuck? Never mind. Forget this game. And it was
I never saw that in the Discord.
I'm kind of kidding about the romantic part. I'd never heard anyone complain about that. But
although Andre is right in that Ophelia and Hanet are OTP, but I feel like I mean there are certain points especially in the chapter 4 where the characters are like, yeah, we've been on this big journey together, and I'm like, give me more. It's not necessarily that I think it's bad, but I'm like, I want more of these characters because they're all so super great. So I think that I totally understand where all the criticisms are coming from, but at the same time, I'm like, this game is for me, and I love that it's so character driven. That's the biggest thing that I'm going with, and that I wish more RPGs were like that. Because if all RPGs had similar care and attention to every single character story, getting resolved and getting, having their own personal journey, then I would be like, I need to play every single RPG.
Yeah.
So the other thing I wanted...
Only that story involved more than talking to two people in a town and then killing some monsters.
Well, I mean, there are certain ones where it was a little bit more, but not, it definitely... All the chapters definitely had a very, not similar loop, but it had they had their own, I don't know, you kind of knew how the chapters would unfold, I guess. You'd get some surprises story wise, but you kind of knew, oh, and you start in a town and then you move out to a dungeon. But there were some moments that I think were kind of surprising in how they dealt with that. I do think that Primrose's chapter 4, that's why I like Primrose so much, is that I feel like that does interesting stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, but But yeah, and the other thing I wanted to bring is so I bought the most currently relevant console of all time, which is a PlayStation Vita.
Oh my god.
Oh
They're going to
yeah.
cancel it.
Did you join the Wake Up
They're going
Club?
to cancel it. They're going to
No,
bring
I actually
the
didn't.
games you're playing to the PS4 any day now.
Honestly, they will because I'm
Or
playing
Steam.
Persona
If
3.
they came out on Steam.
Do you think they'll put Persona 4 Golden on anything else?
No, I do not.
But that's the first.
Sell so many
That's
copies.
the first game I got. I got Persona 4 Golden. I got Persona 3 Portable, which I've been playing through first. I got, and I've gotten like a couple of other cheap games at GameStop. So I like went. And I felt like really weird asking about it. But then the person there saw I was getting Persona 4 Golden, and he was just like, I get you. So he's just like, oh, that makes sense. So actually, I got like a used machine, but it was apparently completely brand new. It was just like the person had apparently ordered a Japanese one by mistake, and was like, oh, I'm gonna trade this in at GameStop. Apparently, I don't know if that's accurate, but it seems pretty good. But I actually really like it. I mean, I know that it's
Why did you get a Vita instead of a Vita TV or PlayStation TV or whatever?
PlayStation TVs are expensive now, apparently.
What?
Like I was
Yeah,
looking
they're
it
hard to
up,
find.
but they are pretty much like getting a Vita was actually about the same amount as a PlayStation TV would cost. And I like the portability.
Those things are like $50. What the
Yeah,
hell?
now they're like close to 150. I don't know why. Because I was talking about it with some other Facebook people, and they're like, why don't you get a PlayStation TV? So I looked it up on Amazon, and I was like, oh, it's about as much, and I like the portability factor. So
Okay.
yeah. So it's been good. It's one of those things where I felt I felt kind of silly pulling it out like on the bus and stuff, because it's like, oh, it's a Vita, but I think it's a nice system, and I generally like portable gaming a lot. So
It has a lot of really good indie games on it.
yeah, and also all the PlayStation 1 titles. Like I've gotten, and then it has all the old all the old PlayStation PSP games on it. So I mean, there's a fair amount of content, especially since I bought it. Or my first thought when buying it was to make it a Persona machine. So I'm like, okay, there's actually some decent stuff on here. It's not just going to be Persona.
Dancing all night. You need Dancing All Night.
Yeah, it's totally worth it for all of the different
Dancing
Persona games you can play on it.
Dancing Sunday. What?
So when they first opened pre-orders for the new Dancing All Night, or whatever, the Persona 5 Dancing All Night ones, there's a price error for like a little bit on Amazon. So I am now getting the giant, normally $100 pack for $60. So I was like, oh, I should probably play Persona 3 and 4.
Is that all of the dancing games, or is it?
Yep. It's 3, 4, and 5.
Which is the price it should be, and not $60 per fucking game.
So Allison, have you
Yes.
started Persona 3 Portable then?
Yeah, I've played several hours of it so far. I've gotten to there's the first full moon event.
Mm-hmm.
So like where you're on a train, and then I just got past that. So
Are you
actually really liking it.
playing as a lady or a dude?
I'm playing as a lady. I was wondering, like, because they were telling me, like, because the thing was like, oh, it's gonna make a difference, and I was like, oh, should I play both? But I'm like, I'm not gonna play both, so I'm gonna play as a lady. But
Yeah.
So that version of the game is actually a lot different than the PS2 one, like structurally a lot different. And it makes me kind of sad because I like the structure of the PS2 version significantly more, but I also really like narratively how they incorporated playing as a woman into the game too. So I really, really, really would love it if they would re-release Persona 3 as a definitive edition on like PC and modern consoles, and allow you to play it structurally either as that version or the original, but either way work in the choice of gender into the core experience. I don't think they ever will do that because they have never released a Persona game like on PC. So I doubt that'll happen. But that was one of the most frustrating things to me about that version of that game. Excuse me.
Yakuza made it to PC, so maybe Persona could.
Maybe, but I don't know. I don't see it. I hope so.
Imagine the mods. Imagine the people modding Persona.
Oh my god! So Persona 3 is my favorite Persona game. I understand why people love Persona 4 so much, and I do need to finish Persona 5. But Persona 3 was the one that it blew the doors off that series for me. I loved that game so much.
Oh, these kids are shooting themselves in the head.
Yeah, so that was definitely. It was I was at the right age. That was edgy and dark and appealing, that they were like, whoa, this is like the craziest anime shit. But then it kind of it's way deeper than that one in the story.
Now I just want a Yakuza and Persona crossover.
Oh, that'd be so good.
I got
They made a Persona game that played like Yakuza.
I want Majima.
Yeah, I was gonna say it has to have like Majima and stuff.
Everyone's like, oh my god, this is his shadow, but then it's just a real dude.
Oh. Sorry, I didn't mean to change the subject, Allison.
You want to know something real crazy real quick? I'm sorry. Let me interject this thing real quick. We went to a Don Quixote while we were in Japan.
Yep.
And they played the song that's in the Don Quixote in Yakuza, and I was like, whoa. I almost didn't license that song, but Xavier and I just looked at each other. We were buying suitcases because we had too much shit to bring home. We're just staring at each other across the aisle. It's like, whoa, can't believe this is happening.
That's amazing.
Okay, sorry, you can continue. Oh, I think Allison's frozen.
No, we lost. Nope, there she is.
Maybe. Oh. Yeah. Okay.
Hi, we have you.
We have you now.
good. Yeah, it was definitely back and forth for a while.
Any other thoughts, Allison? Do you want to share about your PSP Vita as it dies on the vine?
Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Rip.
We may have lost Allison.
I know. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I
it's
know
not
what's
your
going
fault.
on.
Much like the Vita, Allison's internet is dying.
It will never die. My Vita, I have a launch Vita and it still works.
I mean, the Vita itself is functional, but as a console, like as a
Whatever. You'll be able to play those games forever.
As a platform. Not if they shut down the store. And
Look, I can play fucking homebrewed Doom on my Vita any day, anytime, whenever I want.
You play Doom on your thermostat.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say.
I played Counter-Strike on a PSP one time. That was not great.
That sounds awful.
I was really into homebrewing on the PSP. It was sprite, like they turned the 3D models into sprites, so it would run. But it was totally Counter-Strike on a Vita or on a PSP.
Okay, one last time, Allison. Any other thoughts you would like to share?
Well, early in September, I'm going to be going on vacation and having a lot of travel time, so I'll probably be playing a lot of Persona on my Vita, so I'll have a lot more to update in a couple of weeks.
Excellent.
Okay, sounds good. Speaking of traveling, I saw Erica while she was traveling.
Yeah, I actually...
Weird.
You talked about it last week, I assume. But...
I did.
Oh, you guys can't be on the podcast anymore.
Was we know each other now?
Yeah, you can go to your own podcast. I know each other in real life.
I have a story about Japan that I forgot to mention last week.
Was it about Don Quixote? You just told that.
No, it's about the gelato art that I was doing.
Oh yeah, with that guy you met by the dock.
I'm so excited to get an update on this.
Okay,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna save it until after I talk about Overcooked because I want to leave it on a happy note because I'm about to drag Overcooked. Yeah.
Is Overcooked is
Gelato?
Oh, is Overcooked the dead cells of like co-op
Whoa.
multiplayer games.
Whoa.
People like that Cells, okay?
No, a
I
lot of
mean,
people like
have your
Overcooked.
opinions, but
Oh, I like
can't
Overcooked too.
Oh boy. Anyway, Overcooked. Have you guys all played Overcooked 1?
A little bit.
a little bit.
All the way through.
The last time I played Overcooked, I played Overcooked 1, and I didn't think I would like it, and then I was drunk, and I was forced to play it with 2 other drunk people, and I hated it. But then I bought it on Switch for some reason, so I have a weird history with it.
Yeah, I've only played it. I didn't have anybody to play it multiplayer, so I tried the single player for a while, and I was like, and you really very quickly realize, oh, this is 100% made for multiplayer.
Yeah.
Like, they technically have the single player, but it's kind of wonky, so I didn't get very far into it.
I bought it on Switch to play with a specific friend, and then I moved to the other side of the country from that friend, and they don't have a Switch, so.
That's funny.
Yes.
But yeah, like I've only played it couch co-op, which is one of the new things they've added into Overcooked 2 is you can play online co-op now too, which I don't know how. Like, I mean, I guess you could be screaming at your friend through like your headset, but I don't know. I played with my husband.
Connected to your phone.
Yeah.
It's called TeamSpeak.
I played on the PS4.
I use Mumble.
Just anything, but yeah, I played with my husband, who I played Overcooked 1 with, and I really enjoyed Overcooked 1. I had fun with it. I bought the DLC, played through the DLC also, and it's like a good. I don't want to say chill, but you know, relatively chill game.
It's pretty pick up and play. Like if people have never played video games before, they can probably get it within like 15 minutes.
Yeah, like I bought it for my sister, who doesn't really play video games, for Christmas, and she had fun with it. She played it with her boyfriend. She sent me a picture of her boyfriend lying down on the ground after spending 2 hours trying to beat one level with her. But that being said, Overcooked 2 is not a game I will buy for my sister because it is significantly harder than Overcooked 1. And the difficulty spikes are very strange. Like there are a bunch of levels in a row where like it's super easy and it's like, oh, we had no trouble clearing 3 stars, and then we'd get, you know, to one level in the middle that, you know, we had to play like 3 or 4 times, and then, you know, you'd go back to a couple of easy ones or like in the middle, and it's just like, I don't know, it ramps up in a weird way that kind of doesn't make sense. And the other thing too is that it seems like they missed, at least for me, what I think is great about Overcooked 1, and that's like the levels where you're talking back and forth constantly and you really need to work together in order to get orders out, are the best levels in my opinion. And there were a lot fewer of those in this one. This one was sometimes Xavier and I would say, okay, I have the first order, you work on the second order. And so we would just do things completely independently because it was easier to do it that way than to try to work together on stuff occasionally. But I mean, and then the best levels were the ones where we had to work together constantly. Like they added throwing in this one, which I didn't realize was added. I thought it was in the first one, but Alex told me they added that. And so sometimes you have to like throw things across like a barrier to somebody on the other side. So that stuff it's fine. It's fun, but it doesn't feel like they changed enough to make it a sequel. It felt like it could have been split up into like DLC for the first one. Because I don't know, it's just like, it's disappointing. It's like, I wanted there to be more changes for Overcooked 2 or something interesting at least, but it was just like, this kind of sucks.
Did you finish it? Because I've heard it's also really short.
Yeah, we beat the game. The writing wasn't great either, but I mean, I think that I don't really remember what the story was for Overcooked. The first
you have to travel back in time to learn how to cook food for the devil or something?
No,
or
it was a giant
onion
spaghetti
king.
and meatball monster that was like taking over a city.
Yeah. So this one, there's the unbread, which are like zombie baguettes that you have to feed the horde.
Okay, that's pretty good.
That's a good pun. I kind of like the unbread.
Like that's fun, but I feel like anytime I was talking to like the Onion King or whatever, it was like, I don't know, he was, there was too much story feel for Overcooked. But also, which was really weird, there are like secret levels. There, and you in them you have to make dog food for the Onion King's dog Kevin, and for whatever reason, I don't know why, they don't tell you ever how to like unlock those levels. So we ended up looking them up online, and it's, you know, completely just random stuff like, okay, on level 3-4 you have to get 500 points, or, you know, you have to get a combo of 8, and they never ever say anywhere in the game like how to get them. So I kind of wished like Kevin would like pop up and say, hey, maybe you should play this level one more time and get some more combos or something, but I don't know. Also, the map is real weird. Like, I don't know if you remember like the level select on the first one. It was kind of like a cute, like you drove around to different things, and you I think that your environment kind of jiggled around you sort of, but it's still that, but for some reason they've added in buttons that you have to drive over to get ramps. What? To like go up to the next level. It's like there's like terrain, but you have to go find a button, drive over it, and then go up like the ramp to go to your next level, which is bad.
We've all been there on a road trip, and you're driving, and then you're like, oh, there's this ledge I need to get up. I gotta go find the button and drive over it. And then I can get the road.
Yeah.
Got a red key.
That's exactly what it was like when I moved out west.
Yeah.
Drive over the buttons.
That was Lewis and Clark's whole journey, just looking for buttons.
But yeah, like, I think if you love Overcooked, like, I'm not mad I bought it. I'm not like angry I played through it or anything, but
I'm mad about that.
Well, I don't love Overcooked. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you really loved Overcooked and you just want more Overcooked, it's just more Overcooked. Like, it really is just more of that. Some of the levels are better than others, but you know. Yeah. So let me tell you guys about
Gelato guy. I'm way more concerned about this story than I am about Overcooked 2. Whatever.
Distinctly not Overcooked.
Okay, so if you all remember, before I left for my vacation to Japan, I told you guys I was going to be doing gelato art with a guy named Mickey on Airbnb who gave me coordinates.
Oh my god! Yeah.
I looked this guy up on Airbnb. A very tragic backstory.
Yeah, you were bumming me out. Yeah, like when I was with Andre the day before we went. And Andre on the train is like looking this guy up and is telling me about like his dead brother.
Oh, that's
and,
too bad.
Yeah, and he's bumming me out so hard. And when I met him, I was like, yeah, there's a sadness about this guy.
Oh,
but
he just wants to share his gelato art.
Yeah. That being said, I had a lot of fun.
Good.
Yeah, I think he's very nice. He went to college in Canada, and the guy is like the house he lived in, the dorm manager, I don't know if he called it a house, whoever couldn't say his name and dubbed him Mickey, and he's been Mickey ever since.
So he is Japanese then?
Yeah, he's Japanese. I can't remember what his actual name is.
Maybe?
What?
Matsuhiro?
No, I don't think it was that. But anyway, so he came out with like some worksheets where we had to decide like what theme we wanted our gelato to have. I picked an Akita dog, which was a mistake because I can't draw. I am not an artist. I should have picked something that has a very specific look to it.
Maybe you're gonna get there, but when you say gelato art,
I have pictures. I'm going to drop them in the chat in a sec.
But like does that mean like, because latte art, you like draw the thing out of foam on top of a latte, and it's a 2D image. Were you making like 3-dimensional?
So there were options we could pick. I did a 2-dimensional like carving on my thing. Xavier carved Mount Fuji out of some chocolate gelato.
Awesome.
So,
like we're talking like Close Encounters of the Third Kind kind of carving Mount Fuji here.
like it was like
to be like more of a sculpting.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, he had tools. It was like he was just like shaving bits off of it. It came in like a cylinder, and he just like shaped it, and then created snow. Yeah, like he had a lot of different pastries that we could like cut up and stuff and create things with. So Xavier made like a tree out of like a green tea cake. And like, I don't know, Mickey was helping me make like some pretty things to go like next to my really sad looking dog. So, but the best part about this is he was like chatting us up while we were, doing our gelato art. And I just thought, he was making conversation. And so he was like asking us what we were doing. I said, we went to Universal the day before with my friend, and it was Andre. And, that we went to Universal and we saw, he's like, did you see Harry Potter? I'm like, yeah, that was so fun. It was the best part. And then he's like, so what else are you looking forward to doing in Japan? And I said, we're going to go see some wrestling. And he said, that Asuka from the WWE has been to his store before, and so he was trying to figure out if we were into like sumo or if we were into like pro wrestling.
Professional wrestling.
Yeah. So we're like, oh no, that's the one. So it turns out that he was asking us this, and I'm going to send the pictures right now to our group chat. He was asking us this because he decided to Photoshop our pictures with like images, like fun stuff.
Oh my God, that's great.
So he emailed me these pictures of for the podcast. It's me holding my gelato, and then there's an Akita, and there's Harry Potter, and there's and for my husband,
it's the Hogwarts from USJ. It's not even like legit, like Hogwarts from the movie or anything.
And with Xavier, there is there's Mount Fuji, and then there's two professional wrestlers. One's I mean, I don't know who they are. I was gonna guess, but I actually don't know who they are.
We have to put these on the page.
Yeah,
these are
Alex,
really good.
Please feel free to use these as like the art for. I mean, for the picture for our podcast. Yeah. So yeah, it turns out that that's why he was talking to us so much about like what we were doing and what we were planning on doing, because he decided to do this for us.
Well, that sounds like a delight.
Yeah, he's really great. The gelato was delicious. Gelato Vene in Kyoto. Highly recommend it. If you ever in Kyoto?
Did you come away with the impression that this is a thing that anyone else on the planet does besides him?
I don't know.
Because that's the biggest question that I have is I have never heard of this before.
Yeah, like we decided to do this because Airbnb in Japan right now is like super fucked up, and like we got our original Airbnb canceled, and because it was canceled, they gave us like credit for booking a new Airbnb, so we ended up staying for free in Kyoto, and then they also gave us like $100 to spend on Airbnb experiences, which I noticed that there were like a lot of like, hey, come to my house and I will teach you how to cook a meal. Like or we'll make bentos or something. And this was definitely the only making creative Japanese parfait arts. But
yeah, because I googled gelato art and nothing comes up.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know if it's unique to him, but he's been at it a long time. His mom like went to Italy, fell in love with gelato, opened up the store, and he's been there ever since. So
Huh.
But yeah.
Well, okay, I take that back. There is weird ice cream face art that came up, and it's very disturbing. So, yeah, I'm done looking at that.
But yeah, he was really cool. He was like, you could tell that, like, he gave us pieces of paper to draw out what we wanted to do. And like I've said before, I am extremely not an artist. And so he saw that Xavier kind of had an idea in his head that he was going with. And so he noticed that he picked up on me being like, I don't know what to do right now. And he helped me a lot more than he helped Xavier, let Xavier kind of do his thing, his Mount Fuji thing. And yeah, I don't know. I highly recommend it. One of the choices was anime, and I didn't pick it, but I wish I did now.
I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, like, I mean, I think it was more just like it was a list of like ideas more than anything else. But I mean, there was like a picture of Frieza on like the thing when it said anime, and then he pulled out grape gelato. So I'm saying it could have been done, but I didn't.
Given that there is actually a dessert themed Dragon Ball Z character, it's a little odd that he went with Frieza.
I'm gonna guess that it's very unlikely that this man has ever watched Dragon Ball Z.
He's Japanese. He's seen Dragon Ball Z. It's like, it's law.
You've seen an episode of Law and Order, right? That's like,
it's like
what
that.
Dragon Ball Z is in Japan.
Like, they have fucking Vegeta advertising refrigerators. Like,
yeah.
not Frieza, not cooler, Vegeta.
Yeah.
I mean, you put vegetables in the freezer, right? That's like Vegeta. I don't know, but I don't know. I had a lot of fun. I highly recommend that store. We ended up taking home some gelato while taking back to our Airbnb, and he like wrapped it up in dry ice. It was like a whole process. Took like half an hour, but it was delicious.
Our Airbnb is 10 minutes away.
Yeah, like highly recommend Gelato Vene, Nikki. Gelato
Next time
art.
I'm in Japan.
Just saying, Andre, it's not that far from you.
Yeah, I might go check it out. It sounds like a good time.
Yeah.
My sibling and I want to go to Japan when they graduate college, so I think that I'll have to check that out. Be like, we're doing gelato art.
Nice.
Hey, we're from that podcast.
We're from the same podcast as that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I'll go be like,
Hey, a couple years ago. Yeah.
We also went to USJ. But we like Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's speaking of good times, I think Pat has everyone's favorite MOBA, Infinite Crisis, to talk about.
I have 2013's Game of the Year, Defense of the Ancients 2.
Do they still
otherwise-
include the 2? Is it still Dota 2?
It's still Dota 2.
Yep.
It is still Dota 2. It is, in fact, like Dota 2. It's basically Dota 3 at this point.
2.5?
But it's like Dota 3, really. Like, it's a huge overhaul. But they still call it Dota 2, and they will call it Dota 2 forever, because Valve will never release a game with a 3. But yeah, the international has been happening the last couple of weeks. The main event has been for the last week or so, and it's been like a really, 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 really good TI. And I always watch the international pretty much every year. I think I've watched at least the last couple of rounds of every TI. But this year has been like something pretty special. There's just been, the competition is like really fierce. There's been teams from all over the world that have been competitive, and it's resulted in a grand final that's happening right now. That is a rematch from the upper bracket finals, which was one of the coolest games of Dota I've ever seen happened there. And so if you've ever been interested in watching Dota before, I highly recommend just looking at some of the matches that have happened. You really can't go wrong if you look at like any of the upper bracket or lower bracket semis or finals. It's just kind of an example of why people like this game so much, and like why it's been so successful competitively. And there hasn't been the same kind of, and I don't know where League is at right now, but a lot of times when I watch finals for games, even for Overwatch, it happened a bit this year. There's kind of like a meta where out of a pool of 100 characters, obviously way smaller for Overwatch, but you see the same characters over and over again. And that happens to an extent in Dota, and it has happened to an extent in this TI, but like every game has been a fresh lineup. And a fresh matchup, and that's just like super, super exciting to see. It shows that the game is in a really good place balance-wise, because all the games have been very close too. So yeah, it led to me playing a few rounds of Dota in the last couple of days.
Famous last words.
Yeah, I used to play Dota when I was in college. I was never very good at it, and I only played it for like a few hundred hours, which is like nothing in Dota time. So like I don't have kits for all the characters memorized or anything. But I have an understanding of how the game works pretty well, and a number of the like major items. And the issue I had before was just the amount of time commitment that even booting up Dota was going to take. Like, even one game would take like 40 to 50 minutes, and that's still the case for real Dota. But there is now a mode called Turbo Dota, which came out earlier this year as an official thing. I think it's been a custom game for a year or two now, but they officially released it, and Turbo Dota basically plays kind of like League. It's obviously not, the rules are still the same as Dota, but the speed at which it plays is much more comparable to League. Basically, like, XP is gained way faster, gold is gained way faster, towers have less health, and the courier works in a more streamlined way. So the courier is a lot faster, and as far as I know, you can't kill it. So like you can't steal the opposing team's items. It's just like you buy something and then it gets to you like 5 to 10 seconds later. And it's just like a very quick, like, it runs, gives it to you, and leaves. So it's just, you play games in like 20 to 30 minutes instead of 40 to 50 minutes. And I haven't seen any rounds go past 40 minutes really. So it's a fun way to like try out characters, and it's less intense. And people seem to be less intense too. Like out of 4 games, which means that I ran into like 20 different, or 17 different people, 16 different people. No one was a dick except for one person, and even they were pretty tame compared to most people being dicks in MOBAs. They just basically were like, "Oh, this team is useless" at one point. But otherwise, everyone's been like pretty friendly to helpful, because I've just kind of like announced at the beginning of the game, "Hey, I'm getting back in after a long time, so if I screw up, I'm sorry." And it's been encouraging. I don't know. It's definitely the most fun way to play Dota solo that I've experienced since I last was playing a lot.
That's why I haven't touched it at all, is because I've always heard like bad things about trying to get into it for the first time. That like everybody's super unfriendly and horrible.
I think if you were getting in completely on your own, you'll definitely encounter that. But there's a lot of communities that will definitely like invite you into their group and be like, "Okay, let's play with 5 people, so you're not with any strangers," and then like just learn it with kind of a low risk environment.
I'm kind of looking at, I don't know that they have a community, but I was going to look into Waypoint and see if there's a Waypoint group that plays. That's one of the things that's nice about the game, is you can get into different chat channels in the like main client. So you can jump into a channel that has like 20 people or whatever in it, and then say, "Hey, I'm new to the game. I would like to learn to play. Could I play with people and not have anyone yell at me?" And then you get people that know what they're getting into when they queue with you. That's good. There's also a lot of, there are still ways it could improve, but it has better onboarding than it has ever had at this point. it like boots you straight to a learn page where there's a mechanics tutorial, and then you play a bot match with each of the 3 main types of heroes: intelligence, strength, and agility. And then they dump you into a queue for your first actual multiplayer match, they dump you into a queue with other new people if they can. Sometimes in my experience, the search radius went out beyond brand new players, but it also at the start of every game now has a little thing that pops up and says like, remember to be courteous to new people. And I know that the general response to that is like, eye roll, whatever. That doesn't mean anything, but there's actually a lot of suggestion that even just being reminded to not be an asshole to new players at the start of the game does help with, even if it only helps with 20% of the toxic players, like it helps a little bit. So there's stuff like that. Then Dota Plus too has some really smart features to kind of kickstart you into understanding the game more, because you can look at really in-depth information about your performance. And then it also has very in-depth suggestions on, like, it'll give you a thing out of the 120 heroes or whatever, it'll say like, here are 4 suggested heroes that are based on what your team has chosen and what is good for you to play at your skill level, and what lanes they would be in or what role they would be in. And that's, it is part of Dota Plus, so you have to subscribe to it, but it's like $4 a month, and it's a really good feature. It'll suggest lanes and item builds to you on the fly too. So,
and if you don't want to pay for Dota Plus, there's also the coaching feature, which is great. So if you're in a party with people, one person can say, I'm going to be the coach. And they're basically in a spectator role, so they can look at anybody's perspective. So they can look at your perspective and be like, oh, your mouse is moving here. Try using this button. Or like they can draw on your screen and be like, okay, yeah, try like clicking in this area. Like, so if you have a friend who knows the game pretty well, you could just ask them to be your coach, and that can be a really helpful way to learn as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of, it seems like, I don't want to oversell it because I don't think it's still not as easy to play as something like League, but it seems to be in a very good place right now, both as a game to play and a game to watch, which is kind of, it maybe has been that way for a little while, I don't know, but I kind of always felt like it was either like really fun for me to play, but the competitive scene was not great, or the other way around. And it's kind of cool that I'm feeling pretty positive on it overall right now. And then also, it's so wild. There's so much stuff in that game now, like outside of the core gameplay. It's just like weird. Like, like every game has now like, oh, you level up individual characters and unlock new cosmetics and stuff. But Dota now has like every character levels up. There's like a bunch of like different XP hoppers that your account levels up on. And then like right now the battle pass is happening because international's happening. So there's that whole thing. There's like Dota Plus stuff where like you complete quests and do weekly challenges, and then you get shards that you can spend on cosmetics, but you can also spend them on runes, which are like slot into each character, and they track different achievements basically, but like they're more cosmetic than just a standard achievement. It is like, I bought a battle pass to get that Gabe Newell pack, and it said that I got 10 extra levels, like quantity 2 of an item that gives you 10 battle pass levels just with the battle pass. It took me like a long time to figure out where those things were to actually activate them. There's a lot in there.
That sounds like a lot of the stuff they've added to League for like cosmetic stuff and like unlock, like just being able to get cosmetics and stuff. Interesting.
Yeah, it just has a lot of, it seems like they're doing the right thing. I kind of was getting the impression that MOBAs like Dota and League in general have been trending down in terms of players, and we're just kind of like never going to go away entirely, but sort of on their way down. But I don't know, based on what I've been reading with like around this year's TI, it seems like Dota's in a pretty good place and is kind of picking up more and more traction.
I think they're just quietly being super popular. as opposed to like being like the big loud thing like Fortnite is right now.
Yeah,
Because I mean, it seemed like for a while when they were the only thing going is really and far of like big production esports. Not the only thing, but like they were like kind of the main draw for esports stuff. Like they were huge, and now like there's the Overwatch League, there's Fortnite stuff, there's PUBG, but it's like early 2010s. It definitely seemed like it was basically like fighting games, maybe Counter-Strike.
Well, and at the time, fighting games,
StarCraft 2 fell off.
Yeah, and fighting games were so anti esports, like for a while there. So
but as far like especially because with Riot developing their own like production thing like the LCS, which kind of basically influenced Overwatch League and stuff like that. I think it now like everyone's kind of like going off and doing their own thing, and it's not just like here's this one really huge production where Imagine Dragons is playing like a 200,000 person stadium in South Korea.
I think the other thing, they were talking a little bit about this on the analyst desks for the International earlier today. The other thing about Dota in particular, and to some extent League, but largely Dota with the way that its competitive scene has been structured for so long, because the structure of the competitive scene for Dota hasn't really changed since it was a Warcraft mod, really. I mean, obviously when Valve got involved, it got bigger, but it's always been a tournament structure where you have major tournaments that culminate in a championship. And so they're now like three generations in. Like the guys who were the super young talent when Dota 2 really took off and TI started happening, those guys are now like mostly coaches, whereas there's an entire generation in the middle that played extensively in the way that in the Dota 2 competitive scene, and are now the old guard that are actually playing on the teams. So like, because there's been multiple generations and the scene has had time to mature, with Overwatch, you see these players that come in and say like stupid shit. They act like assholes. They like don't have any ability to like, because they're all so young, they all come in at once and are getting fined and dropped from teams and using racial slurs, or not racial slurs, but I think just the homophobic slur was the only slur used this year. But with Dota, maybe, I don't remember. But with Dota, they're at a place right now where most of these players could be total asshats. It's hard really to know, but it's very, you feel good watching it because everyone is fairly positive, because there's been all this, there's multiple generations of players to kind of coach and bring in new talent and sort of express to them how important an event like the International is. So it really creates a sort of maturity to the way that the game progresses that a lot of other esports don't have yet.
Which is kind of interesting based on like the fandoms and like what you kind of associate with those games. Like I associate like happy, like peppy, like, oh, I'm going to ship these characters and like have fun with all this stuff with Overwatch. And so I would assume like people who were like really into it and serious about that game would be closer to that and not assholes. And then with Dota, at least my experience with League and like MOBAs and stuff is that people are just assholes when they play those games. So I would assume that would be like a swapped thing. But yeah, I think you're right with, since it's been such a long fed thing, people are like, know not how to fuck up, or like they have people like, hey, don't do this. We're gonna train you how to not be total goobers.
I think, in my hope, obviously I've played 4 games in 2 days, so I have no real positive anecdotal evidence towards this, but my hope too is that the same thing is happening a little bit with the community too, is that the people that are playing Dota now are probably like the same people that were playing it years ago, and they were so toxic 4 or 5 years ago, but that they're also growing up and becoming less problematic as time goes on too. I don't know. It's hard to see. I think that because of how aggressively League of Legends is marketed, and that hasn't really been for the last couple of years, but seemed like for a while it was so aggressively marketed that it was bringing in new younger players kind of all the time, constantly. But now that younger players are getting siphoned to things like Fortnite, it'll be interesting to see how MOBA communities continue to develop over time, for sure.
Yeah. One thing League did was they implemented this honor system where like after a game you can say like, oh, this person they were a good leader, or they didn't go on tilt, or they were friendly. And like if you get enough of that, I think you get like a little emblem in like the loading screen. So people can say like, oh, this is like a friendly person. Does Dota have anything like that?
Dota's had that for years.
I don't know where it is though.
Yeah, that's the commend system. That's part of the profile.
Yeah, it's weird. The post-match stuff in Dota now is so like, it's so overwhelming that I couldn't even find where to do any of that. It is very easy to tip people though with compendium points or battle pass points. So that is a way that you can reward people, and that gives them that directly takes like tokens away from you and gives them to someone for their compendium level.
When the honor system in the League rolled out like 6 years ago, it would just be like you'd have to like go to the person in the post game screen and then like say, oh, I want to honor them, and like pick like 5 things or something. And now it's just post game, every game it pops up like, here's your team, do you want to give them honor for something? You used to be able to give it to a team or like opponents if they were like a good sport or whatever, but they don't do that anymore. It's just you can say like you have 3 options for your team and it pops up after every game. So if you want to honor them, it's like actively prompting people instead of just like, oh, now you have to remember to do it. And I think that's helping people maybe a little bit. I don't have the data, but I think they've talked about how that's been useful for improving the community.
That's good.
That's the way it's worked in Dota for a couple of years as well. I think they also changed it. Bear in mind, I haven't played in a year, but they changed it to you can only report people on your own team, I think.
So I don't know. I'm looking at a post-game screen because you can pull up your post-match screen for a while, and I've had the client running in the background. I don't really see any way to commend anybody, and there's also no way to report people. Like you can ignore people, but there's no report button, which is a problem I think with Steam at kind of a core level. Is like it's very hard to report users in Steam. So it may be that all that stuff is there, but it is definitely not in a place where it's easy to access.
Are you on the screen where you can still see the map, or the one that you clicked after that?
The scoreboard.
I can't.
So it's after. It's not still on the map. Like it's not still loaded in. In fact, actually, I don't think it pops a screen anymore where you can still see the map. Looking at it, it bounces you to this overview screen. It doesn't actually show you any, show you the map or anything like it used to. It's a weird. The interface is very different now. So it maybe that stuff still exists somewhere, but it's not as easy to access as it used to be.
I know where it was a year ago. I couldn't tell you right now. Sorry.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as I alluded to earlier, I'm going to talk about my games that I've been playing. Both 2D action, Metroidvania-y, or Dark Souls-y type games. First one, Death's Gambit. That is the more Dark Souls-esque. And I really like what that game is trying to do. I just think its combat falls so flat. There's some of the issues you were talking about, Alex, with Dead Cells, where like the timing windows on moves from enemies are like really tight. I felt that like 10 times that in Death's Gambit that I felt in Dead Cells, because like there'll be like a boss character or something will have a move where they'll attack one way, and then next frame they're attacking behind them where you've just dodged to. And then but like since there's a delay on when you can dodge again, you're just like getting hit because you rolled into the wrong spot, but you had like nowhere else to go. And there's like no weight to the hits really. Like the animations are long, like a Dark Souls, but like you can get staggers and stuff. But none of that really exists in Death's Gambit, which I found to be very disappointing from the bits I played. I ended up using like this big anime scythe, which was like really cool. I think scythes are really cool weapons in games, and there should be more of them in games, and they should be good. This scythe, not so good. And there are other weapons that you find and you can use, but I really liked using the scythe. And you have you've got like abilities that you get for your weapons. I think you've got a bow or a ranged weapon and like your melee weapon. I think you can actually do 2 melee weapons, but I don't know why you would do that. But the bows are kind of weak, so this game, there's a lot of weird things about it that I wasn't a fan of. What I did really like was the artwork. I think, or at least the character portraits in like cutscenes and stuff when they're talking. I think that is maybe my favorite character art of the year. They just look so fucking cool and rad. They're like, I don't really know how to describe it. The game is like pixel art, but then the characters are all like hand drawn, really cool looking people, like knights and like stuff like that. There's some good gags, like Death wearing a like cooking apron and just like cooking in a kitchen. Just like, why does Death need an apron? I bet his robes wouldn't get stained. Oh well. And one of the things I don't like about, or it's not even don't like the story in like the Souls games is always like inconsequential to me. I'm not the person who's going to go and read like item descriptions to get lore. And like, here's what the story of this game is. Like, I don't know, there's a fire and I gotta light it or not light it and stop a cycle. I don't know. Okay, kill these bosses. But with Death's Gambit, while it's Souls-like in nature, in like the kind of game it is, it like actually tells a story like to you instead of you having to find the story. And I thought the story was actually pretty interesting and fun. And just well told. You're a knight, I guess, or you're part of like a soldier, and the game starts off after your party has been ambushed, and then you are killed, and Death brings you back to life. And I guess that is his gambit. He is relying on you, entering into a contract with him, and you go doing the stuff he tells you to find some other immortals and break the source of their immortality. That is kind of the crux of where you're going in the game. Your character, Soren, is looking for his mother, who was also a soldier, who left when he was young. And the story kind of goes from there. You get a lot of like flashbacks to when you were a kid, just part of the storytelling. And like get into a relationship between the families, or the family. So I thought it did a really good job of like telling that story. I just wish it was more fun to play. Yeah. Oh, the last like little Souls bit is when you die, you have like Phoenix feathers, or which is like your Estus flask equivalent. Instead of losing all your souls when you die, or like your experience points, you drop one of your Estus flask or Phoenix feathers behind, and then if you want it, you have to go and pick it back up, or you can pay like some experience points at like your resting places to bring back whatever feathers you have lost. So that was like a interesting kind of flip on the formula. And also you can like put feathers into like kind of like kindling a bonfire, but you put like the Phoenix feathers into like increased damage. So you can be like, I'm going to do 150% damage, but I'm going to have 5 less feathers to use for healing. So like there's like a risk reward there. So I think they do some really cool stuff. Just the combat, major bummer.
That kind of reminds me of old Metro, like how your bullets could also be your currency.
Yeah, there's like that. Well, I can use these good bullets and do more damage, or I can use these shit bullets.
And similarly, like Metro, the combat is...
Yeah. It's such a bummer because there's so much cool stuff in that game.
So wait, so how does like... There's like a horse riding mechanic? How does that work?
It's literally just like basically your fast travel. There's like a big tunnel that runs along the bottom, or like, yeah, it's the bottom. It's like bottom middle of the map. And so after each kind of like area, you'll like unlock a gate, and then you can use the horse to fast travel between the areas.
Okay.
I thought it would be more important, but it's not.
Oh, you can't just whip the horse out whenever.
No, it's only in the one area.
So sad.
And like, there's a lot of like platforming and running and climbing and like a lot of like verticality and stuff. So like, I think the levels are cool and the enemy designs are cool. Just the combat is not the best. And also, this will come in with Guacamelee 2, which I'm also going to talk about. Is I'm not very patient when I play games. I just like this, and that leads to me getting frustrated a lot, especially in like difficult games with like Souls-like combat or platforming like Guacamelee, where I just like I won't wait and like take just a little bit of extra time to do it right, and I get flustered. And that I had some spots like that in Death's Gambit, but then like I put it down, walked away, came back, and I was like, oh, okay, I can be this boss now. I just had to, take a breather and get my stuff together. But
So-
yeah.
Have you guys, I don't know, maybe this is just a me thing. Have you guys ever encountered that thing where you play a game, like let's say a racing game or something, and the very first time you do it, you do really well, and like every other time you do it, you never do quite as well as that first time?
I've had that so many times
sounds
playing like
very, very
MOBAs.
familiar.
Playing like League of Legends, I'll be like, I'm gonna buy this champion and I'm gonna play him, and I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna do so good, and I'm gonna play him again, and I'm gonna be like 0-7 in like 5 minutes.
It's like every fighting game I've ever played.
Yeah, like for me, it's specifically like Trackmania. Like if you're doing a completely new track that you've never done before, you're kind of sight reading it, and the first time it goes really well, and then the next several times you're like, oh, I can't hit that corner, even though I got it perfectly the first time.
Yeah,
Anyways,
it's
sorry.
no, that's a good question. And then other game I've been playing is Guacamelee 2. I was a fan of the first game, so I wanted to pick up Guacamelee 2 right when it came out, and it's more Guacamelee. So I don't know if any of y'all have played Guacamelee.
I played it on the Vita, so if you're looking for a Vita game, Allison.
Hey. I've played I never actually finished it, but I played a decent amount of it on PC.
I briefly touched it.
I played it a little bit before I realized I like those kinds of games.
So it's like that same humor, same gameplay, and like, for better or worse, it's the same. I think the combat's pretty good. It's a little bit stiff. Again, it's like the Dead Cells has kind of ruined me on these kinds of games for combat at the moment, at least, where you can't really chain moves together. You can chain moves together, but there's like a big like animations that take a really long time. You can't really cancel out of them except into other special moves. And I haven't gotten any like quick traversal stuff yet. So it's like when I have to like uppercut and then like dash punch to like get up a ledge, it's just like, okay, it feels like it takes a little bit too long. And some of the writing I think is very good and very funny. Like I was in this temple and you're going through, and it's like the room is all white. Think like Unfinished Swan, where you're filling in the room with like color and stuff, but the way you're filling in the room is by defeating enemies, and their blood is just like splattering the walls, but it's in like purple and like green and like weird colors. And so you make it through this room, or this like series of rooms, and you get to the end, and there's this undead janitor who like you've talked to throughout this temple, and he's like, oh man, I just finished cleaning all those rooms, I hope nothing happened to them, they were so white you couldn't even see the walls. I'm like, oh well, sorry, janitor guy. I thought that was like a pretty good little gag. They're like, the concept of the game is you travel to an alternate timeline where you died in the events of the first game. Instead of beating the final boss, you died to the final boss, and someone else came along and completed your mission or your job. And so
That's an interesting premise.
Yeah, and so the game has you traveling between like multiple timelines, and like literally you're going to the darkest timeline. that is the timeline you are going through as the main part of the game. But you also go to like the Street Fighter universe, or like the Street Fighter verse or whatever, They don't call it exactly that, but it's something about Street Fighter. And then like there's a car that you can beat up. And it's just like, okay.
Very referential.
Yeah. There's like the very first thing is you go to Limbo, and then there's like a Limbo joke where like a big spider leg tries to get you before you, or right after you like leave the area. And it's like this is 2018. Why is there a Limbo joke in here? What is going on? So I don't know. A lot of the jokes seem like out of like it turned into a turn-based RPG at one point. It's just like in one of those like I just like what is going on here? Like a lot of it seems like the writing and stuff seems very like old fashioned. Not old. There's a your mom joke, and I was like, really? 2018?
Wow.
You're talk about your mom joke? Okay. It wasn't offensive or anything. Like your mom joke was ever offensive, but it's just like strange sometimes. Some of the writing seems very good, and then some of it seems like overwritten to be like, aha, we're gonna be this kind of funny, which just why? But I think it's overall I'm enjoying my time with it. The platforming sections can be super hard. Like that was one of the big complaints about the first one I think that people had was like as you got towards the end of the game, it was asking a lot of you in the like platforming sections. And part of the mechanic is you switch between like the living and the dead world, and like certain platforms or like obstacles will exist in like one world and not the other. So maybe you're like flying through the air and then you need to switch between universes or like you're like wall jumping, but every time you jump you need to switch universes so you don't like land on spikes on the other side. And like that can be like very rewarding when you're good at it, or if you're impatient like me and you just keep fucking up in the same way over and over and you know exactly what you're doing wrong but you can't fix it, it'll be very frustrating.
Sounds like they played some Titanfall too.
Was there?
Did
Yeah.
anybody else play Titanfall 2?
That was the same thing in the first Guacamelee, so maybe
that's true.
Titanfall.
Oh, was it in there?
Or, yeah, it was in the first one.
Oh man, I don't remember.
Maybe. Yeah. Also, you know what? No one ever talked about Dishonored 2 that year when they did the exact same fucking thing. There was literally the exact same fucking mechanic in one of the levels of Dishonored 2. No one talked about it.
Rip.
Bullshit.
Because it had stealth and
like Dishonored
Titanfall had mechs and you shoot stuff.
Like Titanfall 2, good game. Good. I'm not disparaging that game or that level. I'm just saying Dishonored 2 deserved better.
I think even as someone who hasn't played Dishonored 2, based on everything that I've heard, you're correct.
These games are so good.
The people that have played Dishonored 2 and talk about it more passionately than most people talk about most video games. That's usually a good sign that it didn't get its due.
Yeah. Yeah. Much like other immersive sims, Prey and stuff. Even even people I've heard. I don't know how we started talking about Dishonored 2, but even people who like immersive sims, like Daniel Riendo over at Waypoint has talked about how like she's not really finished a Dishonored game. And I'm like, what is wrong with you?
I love immersive sims, and I've not finished a Dishonored game.
They're so good.
I know. I would love to play one of them.
They're always on sale. Like, what do you?
I own them all, Andre.
What are you doing? Why
are you playing Dota?
I wish I knew.
Turbo mode.
I'm playing Dota. That's what I'm doing.
I learned it from watching you. Yeah, and so that made that news earlier this week. Unsurprising, but sad to hear that Dishonored is on hiatus for the foreseeable future. But
I always thought that was the answer they gave as soon as they announced Death of the Outsider. That was the last piece of Dishonored that you'd see for a long time.
I don't know. It was recently reconfirmed, I guess.
Okay.
They put Dishonored in a interesting spot, and so they could go back to it whenever. Yeah. I look forward to whatever Arcane does. I think they're one of the best studios going right now, and that is woefully underrated.
I just really hope that Bethesda values them as much as because Prey is phenomenally good, and like I know Dishonored. I trust that Dishonored is. I've played about half of the first game. I just didn't actually finish it, and I loved what I played of it. And everyone that I respect and love in the industry talks about Dishonored very highly. So like, but as I understand it, their games, Arcane's games in general, are almost always sales disappointments.
Yeah.
So I really hope that Bethesda maintains their team and doesn't like pare them down because of that.
I mean, Bethesda seems like a studio that they've got like all that extra money from launching Skyrim over and over again.
Yeah.
And they're seem committed to like doing interesting and like things that other people aren't doing.
And they seem committed to maintaining goodwill in a way that a lot of studios or a lot of publishers don't. So I feel like Arcane is probably at the best place they could be with them.
Like Arcane, they could. I think the fact that they make immersive sims is the thing that holds them back the most.
Because they're so expensive.
Is because they're so expensive, and I don't think they have like the widest appeal. Like people talk about loving Deus Ex and like stuff like that, but like that last Thief game was bad.
Don't even talk about that.
No. The last like 2 Thief games are bad. There are 2 very good Thief games.
Like the people who love immersive sims fucking love immersive sims, but they don't have a wide appeal. So I think it's
which is so weird, but whatever.
When people love like Fallout and Skyrim, like the things they love about those games, and I think are done maybe so much better with like the clockwork stuff. I think is done so much better
but maybe you can too.
Yeah, and you can manipulate that stuff differently in like a more rigid system, like a Skyrim or something. I don't know,
I think it's because they don't feel as open is really. Because
you're getting put into a very dense space instead of like a more open space. I'll take the dense space over the big open empty space personally, but give Arcane a good license to do things. Give Arcane a Harry Potter game.
Ooh.
Oh my god, shut the fuck up.
And also play Guacamelee too.
But if, more than that, give Arcane a Harry Potter game.
I would suggest people play Guacamelee if you're into Metroidvanias. If like you like melee combat focused Metroidvanias, maybe like Hollow Knight. Like it's very different from Hollow Knight in like its structure and the way it builds things. But like if you're into like like Castlevania as opposed to Metroid, I guess. If let's see, what else? If you like corny, dumb pun humor, that's very strong in Guacamelee.
And luchadors.
If you like luchadors,
I like luchadors.
There you go. If you like chickens, let's see, skeletons. Like skeletons.
We are skeletons.
Some people don't like themselves. The last thing I found, Chicken Illuminati.
Wow.
Weird.
Chicken Illuminati. That game, it's got a sense of humor. I like its style. I wish sometimes its humor was a little more like, I wish they dialed it back on some of the stuff and like were more deliberate instead of just we're gonna throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. But I think most of it sticks. Just when they drop your mom jokes, I'm just like, what are you doing? Did you make this game immediately after like Guacamelee 1 and just didn't release it until now?
Okay, but like the most challenging thing is that like Hogwarts is like super, super dense, but not a very large area of land. So like it would be perfect for Arcane.
You'd have like a Forbidden Forest and it'd be very good.
What about Don't Nod? What if they made a Harry Potter game?
I'm not going to be happy unless Arcane makes Harry Potter.
Okay.
Andre broke that license for me now because I never had that thought before.
Don't I could fuck with that if they did like They would have to divorce it from.
It would be like the movie games. They would have like dumb spots where you have to use specific spells, and that would make certain things. I don't know.
I like that universe. So like if they divorced it from, just give Don't Nod like a magic game with like a creative magical system. That'd be actually pretty cool.
I
Like
would
magicians and not like vampire or magicians instead of vampires, sorcerers, wizards.
I would rather see a Don't Nod Dresden Files game.
How about? All right, hear me out. How about a Harry Potter game made by Quantic Dreams? David Cage directs Harry
God.
Potter 8.
No.
I mean,
No.
I can think of no better pairing than J.K. Rowling.
That's a very good point.
Okay, because I was just thinking, I'm like, okay, I would accept any good Harry Potter game that was from like a legitimate dev, not just like a mobile dev. And then you said that, and I was like, maybe not.
What if
I would
Peter?
accept
What
any
if?
Harry
What
Potter
if?
game from a legitimate dev.
What about? What if? What if
The
Peter
house elves
Molyneux?
are-
Peter
The
Molyneux did
house
it.
elves are not an allegory for slavery.
Fuck.
Dude.
No.
So if Peter Molyneux did a Harry Potter game, would it be kind of like a mixture of Harry Potter and Swiss Army Man?
That's what he would call it, but then it would actually just be like one of the movie games.
Yeah.
Potter Molyneux.
Oh God.
Oh no.
We have to end this podcast. That's
Yes.
we've jumped the shark.
We're almost
did that a
2
while
hours,
ago,
so
I think.
I believe it is. I believe it is time to close out this podcast. As always, if you liked this show, if you didn't like it, you should also like our Facebook page and subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play.
But don't leave us a review.
If you didn't like it, don't leave us a review. You know what? No, yeah.
Not only 5-star reviews. That's the only ones we accept. Sorry.
Yeah.
We know our
I don't
we
make
know our
the
brand.
rules, but
Yeah, we're not changing for anyone.
You know what? You can leave a bad review, but make sure it's 5-star bad review.
Yeah, that's fine.
yeah, I'll take it.
This podcast is so bad. Like, reviews are a continuum, or they're not a continuum, a circle. So
If
reviews are a
you-
flat circle. You go so bad, you actually become good again.
If you leave a bad 5-star review, there's more chance that someone will see it because highly reviewed podcasts get placed higher on like lists of podcasts people should watch. So if you want someone
There
to
you
see
go.
your bad review, you should make it 5 stars.
Make sure your
There you go.
iTunes name is the same as like all your social media handles, so that way everyone's like, damn, that's a good bad review. I'm gonna go follow this person on all the social media.
And then your podcast can become successful.
It's just mutually beneficial for everybody.
Yeah.
To leave a 5-star review.
You can find me on social media and direct your bad reviews at Coolslaw, COOLSL4W on Twitter. Alex, where can people find you?
I don't know if I should share it, but we have an account on a new social network called Furry for Life, like the number 4.
I'm so happy.
So it's furryforlife.org/gamingfix.
Oh Jesus.
That's great. That's great.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe we can get Sonic Fox on here.
Okay, see that would be the only thing because he's rad, but
Allison, where can people find you? Or
You can find
what's
me
your
on
Furry Life account?
No.
you can find me on Twitter at WRITERSERENYTY. And if there's an account named that on Furry for Life, it's not me.
Okay. Erica?
It's then 100% Alex.
It is 100% Alex. And I
Alex.
saying that, I was like, oh no, I put an idea in some people's heads.
Alex furiously typing.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram, which I started using again, at Erica, spelled AIREHCUH. And you can listen to my other podcast, Tempered Expectations, which Sam last week gave us homework, and I said that was my homework assignment, was to record an episode of that podcast, and I did, but we haven't posted it yet.
Those fuckers at WWE put on a good show for SummerSlam and then the days after. God damn it.
I didn't watch it.
SummerSlam.
I canceled my
All
WWE
right.
Network subscription.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's the smart. That's the smart way to do it.
That's what I did too. I canceled it. We're focusing only on New Japan now. And also we've made the decision like this week, it's not on the podcast, but we've made the decision to focus only on adventure games too. So we'll see how that goes.
Okay. Like point and click adventure games?
Primarily, I think, but I don't think we're gonna leave it open.
You should play the Book of Unwritten Tales.
You should play Full Throttle.
We're starting with Myst 3 because I've never played it. But
okay.
I mean,
Sure.
put those in the chat so I remember them.
Okay. And then Best Boy, where can people find you?
You can send your ideas for great Harry Potter games to @Arcane Studios. That's Arcane with a K. So ARKNE Studios. And you can find me at Jester PC.
All right, that is going to do it. Once again, you can find us at fix.space or Fix Podcasts on Facebook. And all have a great life. Great day, great week, great time. Enjoy the International. I hope all your favorite teams get to the finals.
I'm excited to have a great dinner.
The finals are happening right now, and none of my favorite teams got to the finals.
I thought the finals are on Saturday. What the hell?
They're happening right now, yeah.
Okay. Well, enjoy. I hope the team you want to win wins. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye, Andre.